morning, everybody. Thank you, Banur. And I would like to thank you as well, the Social Design School. It's a great opportunity since we teach social architecture in Spain. So I think there is a very important link joining us. I didn't know, so I'm very glad. So we are here to present actually what we can learn from our experience and just trying to imagine how can we empower public bodies or citizens to transform abandoned spaces through temporary uses. So what we try to define at the very first level, it's what does it mean, no? Temporary use. And to us, it's something which is not affecting the final destination of a building or empty space within a city, which is mostly enriching the perspective of the transformation, the ability of a territory, as in the case we have just seen, which was really interesting, especially for this idea of the liquid society. And most of all is mobilizing ideas on cultural issues, which can really enrich the final use. So to define this tool and empower administration or citizens, we try to, let's say, find the methodology, to bring from our experience the learning process to the Generative Commons project. So first of all, we define the goals, then we analyze our own experience, and then we apply our experience to some European cases, and we finally bringing together all this knowledge, define the tool, and we have settled this proposal of creating a kind of European policy of opening temporary use offices through Europe. So let's start from the goals. I think the most important one is to understand how cities which are not used, because I know in Vienna you have a huge experience in this kind of innovative methodologies, but you have to also imagine that in Europe, in many countries, they don't either know what is about, not the temporary use concept. So we try to define a kind of methodology and most of all an index, okay, which are the main important elements we have to consider it to create this tool. So we divided in 6 steps. The first one is to know very well which one is the offer. Okay, so mapping all the abandoned and empty spaces. Then the very important matter is to know very well the spaces, and as architects, of course, we analyze the kind of properties, which kind of catalogation does the building have, the level of the degrade, and through this first step, we defined a reuse index, okay, which is the lowest common denominator that we have to consider, or public administration should consider to, let's see, to consider the opportunity to reopen an abandoned building. And then we have the phase of the demand, which is very important, which fundamental cities and public administration should be aware about the real demand of citizens on the use of those spaces. And it's very important also the dissemination, because many public administration are not aware at all about this link they should create among the existing spaces and associations. The third step is the assignment phase. After you know all the existing empty spaces and the existing demand, you create calls to, let's say, choose which one are the best proposals. Then there is the fundamental part of suggesting which kind of funds, because as citizens, we always have to face this kind of issues, and we think up to our mind should be the public administrations suggesting to citizens and associations which kind of funds can we manage not to activate new initiatives. So we should, let's say, consider local funds, national funds, and most of all European funds. Then we have the phase of the implementation. Okay, we made the call, we select the best proposal, and finally we can start through a local action group this kind of implementation, where we have to consider these very important elements, the legal, let's say, issues. No, is it possible to? Is the accessibility of the building good enough? Which kind of permits do we need as associations, or as in the case we have just seen, which kind of permits do we need to swim? So everything facilitated by this process. And the final step is the assessment. Of course, it's very important to control the, let's say, the project and how the users are really implementing the proposal. Everything comes from several programs that we have implemented in Zaragoza, in Spain. This is the biggest one. It's a program based on the reuse of empty plots through temporary uses. So the methodology in our case was a little bit easier. It was quite simple actually. We just mapped all the empty spaces, and through calls we were inviting associations, and up to their needs we were, thanks to some local funds, we were transforming those abandoned plots, creating community gardens, sport areas, working with schools, with kids associations. At the end of the program, we had the opportunity to transform 60 empty plots, and all the spaces are co-managed by the local associations and, let's say, facilitated by the municipality of Zaragoza. This is the methodology that we have implemented. It's very easy. Maybe it's not important in this moment. After this program, we have implemented another one, but focused on empty buildings. First of all, once more, we have mapped all the public buildings, and most of all, realized which were the areas they could, let's say, reactivate. And we have also created some architectural, let's say, templates, knowing very well each building, and as I said before, by the structural level, accessibility level, which were the elements to consider for the reopening of those spaces. We created also a website where you can upload your own needs and ask for one of those buildings. So this was the second experience, and we also have done a post, let's say, when we finished the program, we created this methodology, identifying different steps, which will be then analyzed for the GECO toolkit. And finally, through the Generative Commons program, we identified 250 the best practices in Europe, and we chose 3 of them because they were more significant to us. Some of them were citizens' initiatives, others were well, depending on the kind of initiative, it was interesting and important, and we had a different learning, analyzing, for example, in Brussels, we have the Zinneke Masui project. So we analyze, for example, the surrounding area and the existing facilities. This is very important for us as urban planners, because in most of the cases, we realize that those initiatives are settled in areas where there are no other public facilities. So it's very important and really needed, not this new use that is implemented through the reactivation. While in the analyze and the interview, we ask many different factors, and we finally identify the most important thematic areas. And so we have different cases. And finally, through all this analysis, we have been able to define which is the final process that we suggest to both public administrations and citizen associations. So we have done many tests with local associations, through workshops. We have been involving administrators because they know all the local rules, and they were suggesting, okay, this is possible. So we were, let's say, changing a couple of times this methodology, engaging local stakeholders. And this is the final one. And by now what we are doing is defining the ones that we call the temporary use indicators by analyzing these 3 best practices that we final, let's say, we have interviewed, and trying to define also a viability index, which is a very technical process, but really necessary by our point of view to empower associations which don't have knowledge about all these urban, let's say, processes. And let's say, especially have the index about when it's easier or when it's not, let's say, suggested not to reuse one building instead than another. And the final, let's say, step is the proposal of creating temporary uses offices through Europe, engaging citizens and defining all the stakeholders to involve, defining programs, new uses, and that's all.
Thank you very much, Patrizia. Are there any